Buddy Gleason here in our Sacramento studios. Our next guest has a call tonight on TNT, legendary play-by-play broadcaster. First of all, Ian Eagle, welcome to the show. Congrats on the Nets hiring of Jordi Fernandez. You're going to love him. And also, more importantly, congrats on the successful completion of your first season as a lead TV announcer for the NCAA men's tournament. How much did you enjoy that, Ian?
Oh, boy, it was an absolute blast. Guys, I've only had 2 hurricanes today, so I'm feeling very good, prepared, ready. I've walked the streets of New Orleans. I am lathered up and ready for this play in action, but much appreciated. Thank you for the kind words, and it was really enjoyable. I just had a lot of fun over the course of the weekend in Phoenix.
Great, Ian Eagle joining us. Ian, it's Kyle here. As you get ready for tonight's game between the Pelicans and the Kings, no Zion tonight. I'm sure you've spoken to the coaches and the players maybe already. What's the sense you get from the Pelican side of things about what's at stake for them tonight?
They're saying all the right things. The general feeling in the city is that the Zion absence definitely takes a real piece out of their hopes and whatever motivation that they had of being a real factor in the postseason this year. If they were to win this game, we know it would be a matchup against Oklahoma City, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. Zion would probably not be a part of that series. They're looking at 2 weeks before they can do any imaging again. Hamstring issue, which he had a problem with last year, was the other leg. He missed the last 43 games of the season last year. I don't believe this is nearly as serious as what he went through a year ago, but it's tricky, as we know, when it comes to that particular injury. So, to a man, they're handling it the right way. Clearly, they've performed without him in the past. This particular year, he played 70 games and was playing the best basketball of his career. We saw it in that LA game, 40 points, 11 rebounds. They could not stop him. He was also very committed defensively against LeBron James. So it's a big hit, but you still want to make the playoffs. You still want to validate your season. So they're locked in trying to get that done, and then they'll worry about the next step once they get through this in their eyes.
Catching up with Ian Eagle on Sactown Sports. Quick 2-parter for you, Ian, if I may. 1, what percentage of NBA games now come down to, well, it depends who makes the most threes. And 2, isn't a beignet really just a glorified donut hole? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Let me take number 2 first, because it's very fresh in my mind. I grew up in New York. I grew up in Queens on the mean streets of Forest Hills, and we had a number of pizza places there. And in those pizza places, they had a delicacy called a zeppoli, which was basically what you mentioned, Whitey, which is more or less a donut hole, and then they would pour some sugar on it.
Yeah.
And you would get a rush. You would feel it hit your bloodstream on the first bite. And that's more or less what a beignet is. I bought in when we started coming to New Orleans. I just automatically had this feeling like, all right, I've got to go get them.
Yes,
I got to go get the beignet. And then, I don't know, maybe the 5th year, the 6th year, the muscle memory of it, I was like, what am I doing? I'm just eating a donut hole. I can do that anytime. So I'm with you. I have not gone now in a number of years. So I'm glad we tackled number 2 first. Number 1, I have no recollection of what you asked on the front side.
3-pointers. How many games now these days? It just comes down to who throws in the most threes. Yeah.
I mean, look, you guys saw it firsthand. The 18 of 39 from 3-point range against Golden State. Dominant performance by Sacramento. The fact of the matter is, it's the name of the game, and that's how coaches view it. Most analytics people will tell you the same thing, that this is the way to win. New Orleans shot 9 of 30 from 3-point range against LA, and they lost 110 to 106. Now, they probably lost because Zion Williamson left the game with 3:13 to go, but it is part and parcel with success at this level. There are some teams that don't completely buy in, and I've noticed that they'll curtail some of that philosophy based on their personnel and based on maybe what's happening in the game. But there's no getting around it. We're in a new age in the NBA, and I don't see it changing. It's funny, during the NCAA tournament, a lot of questions in regards to Zach Edey and how he fits in and what team's going to give him a chance. And the reality is he doesn't fit with the modern NBA. But there might be a coach / GM / talent evaluator that says, you know what? Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to try to see if there's a way in which to turn that into a success and go against what the trends have been in the league and go back to a traditional big, at least maybe as part of your second unit. But I don't see it changing anytime soon, honestly.
And you know, obviously you've called games for years, big games, championship games. You know, as I look at this matchup, I think, yes, the stars have to perform, but how often do these games, you think, come down to the role players? Somebody maybe not as high on the scouting report having a memorable game.
Oh, yeah, you nailed it, Kyle. And I know you've been around it your whole career as well. You go into these matchups with the knowledge that the headliners are often the ones that take up your space in the open and in your early commentary, and then the game evolves into something else. And, you know, let's take Keon Ellis as an example. I know you guys talked about him quite a bit. It's a great story. I had a bunch of Alabama games when he was there, and he was a nice player, but he was not earmarked for NBA success. That's a prime example of the right team, the right opportunity, and the right development coming together. And now a player that could have a 10, 12-year NBA career that was an afterthought coming out of college. He was a JUCO guy. He had to develop his jump shot. He was always committed on the defensive end, but he really locked in on improving his skills, finding his niche. And probably without the Kevin Huerter injury, we're not seeing this from Keon Ellis. But what has it done? It's triggered their defense. It has started now a new vibe around this team. They're more committed defensively. And I think Keon Ellis has been a big reason why, unlocking that part of who they are. And it's not a knock on Kevin Huerter. It's just sometimes you don't know what the magic ingredient is. So if this team does go to the playoffs and they win tonight, I personally believe Keon Ellis is going to play a huge role in that. What he's doing on the defensive end is real and it's tangible.
Ian Eagle has the call tonight on TNT. Ian, every time we have seen the Pelicans so far this year, they have looked great. I mean, they've looked like 86 Celtics. Nah, you know, Jordan's Bulls. Nah. And I know, I mean, they look tremendous. I know they're not that good, but as good as they've looked against the Kings, how come they've struggled so much at home this year? I can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's odd. There's no doubt about it. This is an outlier. You just look at numbers and just go through history in the NBA. If you're an elite team, you, if not dominate on your home floor, you certainly take care of business on your home floor. Last 6 games have been losses at home, so that's been very strange in and of itself. They're 21-19 at home this season. They're just over 500. Think about it. They wouldn't even be in this situation if they just got a couple of home wins down the stretch. They would have qualified in the 6th spot, and they wouldn't be facing a play-in scenario like they're facing tonight, their second play-in game. So it does defy all of the odds of what we've learned in the NBA. There's no real reason for it other than you can start getting into home court advantages and whether or not you feel that. In my estimation, this has not been a bad home court. There have been years when AD was on the team. I did playoff games here, a playoff series against Portland where it was really loud. I'm going to say this right now and at least get it out of the way because of the viewing audience later. There is a woman in New Orleans that screams at the top of her lungs and you can hear her on the air. She's there basically every game. I've never been able to identify her, but I know she's there. So if you hear shrieking at some point during the game tonight, you're going to remember, oh yeah, Ian mentioned her. She's there, and you can't avoid it. She knows where the microphones are.
Wow, the banshee of the Smoothie King. Yeah.
That's something else to look for tonight, though.
Yeah,
So I appreciate
yeah,
that, Ian. That's,
yeah.
that's good stuff. When you look at the playoffs, I look at the Western Conference and how tough it's going to be to come out of that for whoever it is, whether it's Minnesota, OKC. Does Boston have an advantage in the East? Like, is it theirs to lose this year?
You would think so. I mean, just the way that the Eastern Conference is lining up, Milwaukee is down, and the Knicks are not whole, but they're going to have a really challenging first-round matchup against Philadelphia and Cleveland. We know that if it doesn't go well this year, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to break up that team. And Orlando is an upstart, so you have no idea how they're going to handle their first real foray into the postseason. Indiana, fun offensively, gets up and down the floor. They look to push it. They look to shoot the three, as we talked about earlier. But again, we don't know collectively how they're going to deal with a potential playoff run. So with all of that said, Boston is head and shoulders above everybody else in the Eastern Conference. Just look at the difference in games, win total, between the 1 spot and the 2 spot in the East. And then in win total between the 1 spot and where the Sacramento Kings are. There just wasn't a huge difference in the West. Everybody was really good, highly competitive. Oklahoma City worthy of a number 1 seed, but again, first trip in this type of terrain. Denver, defending champions, have to respect them. Minnesota had the 1 seed seemingly for the majority of the season, dealt with injuries. Now they're back and healthy again. A team that believes they have a chance to do some special things. And now we can just keep going down the list in the Western Conference. It's stacked. So everything you mentioned, Kyle, is real, but you know this because you know it from personal experience. In Boston, I'm not sensing overconfidence from that fan base. If anything, it's a hesitancy because they don't want to fully commit and believe that it's going to happen. There's been a weird angle there, at least from the people that I've talked to, of not quite buying in that this is the year. They know it's supposed to be the year, but they're not allowing themselves to quite go there yet.
All right, Mr. Bagels in baseball, you're the best. Now everybody knows that. For a while, not everybody knew it. Now we all do. Congratulations again on the tournament, and we look forward to your call tonight. Most of all, thank you for joining us today, Ian.
Oh, always a pleasure. Great being on with you guys, and we'll do it again. Hopefully this is just the start of something for Sacramento, and we'll see if there's some more appearances down the road.
There you go. Thank you, Ian. We appreciate it.
See you guys.
Okay. Great. Ian Eagle. How about that on the beignets and the donut holes? Yes, sir.
You knew he was a New York guy and would say that. You set him up for that. You